What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes and Spotify. Also Instagram at talklouder_podcast. And of course, our website, talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. And today we've got a guy who is absolutely a legendary piece of Austin music history. His name is Wayne Nagel. He is one of the founders of the Rehearsal Complex, which you may have heard of.
Austin Rehearsal Complex.
Austin Rehearsal Complex. If you haven't heard of the building, you may have heard of the band The Archangels. They took their name from the building because they rehearsed there. Wayne was also instrumental in buying talent in an early version of the Back Room, legendary Back Room nightclub here in Austin, Texas. He also is a tour manager, does work with CCR, went out with Charlie Sexton, Eric Johnson,
many others. Ray Wylie Hubbard, I think, is who he's currently working with now, is Ray Wylie Hubbard.
Ray Wylie Hubbard, yeah. And we should point out that he's also one of the founders of the Sims Foundation, which, if you're not familiar with, we'll talk about in this episode and get to know a little bit more about that organization, which does amazing things. So
I like it that he's an old friend. You know, he's kind of had my back, I could say, more than once. But you know, when you kind of think about the Sims Foundation, he sort of has a lot of people's back, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really does.
He's a really great soul. You know, if you talk about Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimmy Vaughn and David Bowie, and of course the Sexton brothers, Charlie and Will, and Joe Ely, and you know, people. He's got stories about Michael Wagner, who produced Dokken and Metallica. He has stories about you know. He's got a Spiders from Mars connection. He's just one of the most interesting people that I've ever met, and he's the nicest guy in the room. It was, you know, I have to give credit to our producer Jared Tuten, who was in Pariah, and Wayne was one of the co-managers of Pariah. Jared is also not only the producer of the Talk Louder podcast, he's my songwriting partner in Broken Teeth, as a lot of you already know. He was the last member to join Pariah, because they used to be a 4-piece, Jared making them a 5-piece. They went on to get a record deal and work with Tom Werman. And anyway, you know, Wayne was a big player in all of that and was around in the shift between, you know, when hair metal became grunge, just as far as where your parents' money went. I think that, you know, when you watch this or listen to this episode of the Talk Louder podcast, it's most definite that you are going to learn something really cool about Austin, Texas, or a band or a guitar player that you really adore. Without further ado, Wayne Nagel on the Talk Louder podcast. What's the record or the band, or, you know, how did you get into music, or in particular rock music? What was the record that made you sell your soul to the devil? What exactly was it?
I can tell you what, it changed my life. It was Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones.
Yes.
When it came out in the summer of 1965, I was 11 years old. I got a transistor radio for my birthday from my grandparents. And I heard that song on, I was living in the Bay Area. I was living in Richmond, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I heard it on KFRC, and that changed my life. You know, I grew my hair as long as they would let you, and, you know, took guitar lessons and bought Beatle boots. In fact, I had a Brian Jones haircut is what I had. But
yeah, cool.
And then the follow-up single for Satisfaction was Get Off My Cloud. By that 1-2 punch, they had me, and I've been a Rolling Stone fan ever since. In fact, it's my religion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way. You are so welcome on this podcast, but you just said the magic fucking words, man.
So it's safe to assume we'll see you out at the Stones gig in 15 days or what?
Yeah, November 20th. In fact, I'm flying in. Luckily, I've got a gig where I'm working with Wylie Hubbard, and they know that it's my religion, and they're letting me have a night off. I'm flying in from Fort Smith, Arkansas. So fingers crossed, everything will work out. As long as I make it to Dallas. If I can make it to Dallas, I think I'll make it home.
So you're a card carrying member, Rolling Stones Limited.
Yeah, I'm a Rollinga. I don't know if you've heard of the Rollingas.
No, I haven't.
The Rollingas are I want to say religious cult, but they're a cult out of Buenos Aires, Argentina, that they worship the Rolling Stones. That's their life. Because in fact, when we with Creedence Clearwater, we played South America a lot, and I noticed when I was in Buenos Aires, I'd see lots of Rolling Stone tongue shirts and tattoos, the crew working. I saw that. And then when I saw this documentary, and the Rolling Stones were one of the first bands in 1995 when the dictatorship fell. They wouldn't let any rock and roll in Argentina, especially British, because of the war with the British, the Falklands, and the Rolling Stones were one of the first ones to come in. And Creedence came in right after that. That's one of the reasons, I think, my theory, why we were so big there. Our biggest play was Argentina, was Buenos Aires. But anyway, they worship the Stones, and look it up, Rollingas, and they're
that's cool.
Because they would go to jail for listening to the Stones or the Beatles or whatever. Up until 1995. Just think that wasn't that long ago. We were all full blown adults in '95. I was in the middle of the arc, and you were anyway.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's talk. That you're kind of setting us up for the episode. David, you had a thought. What was that?
While we're on the subject of the Stones playing in Austin here in a few days, Wayne, I wanted to ask you. I think I saw somewhere that the Austin date is the last date of the tour. And I don't know if that's the last date of this particular leg or if it's the last date of the tour.
Well, it was the last date of the tour. They just added the Hard Rock in Miami or Hollywood, Florida, wherever it is. We've played it before. That holds 7,000. It's a small amphitheater. I've played it with Creedence and maybe Eric Johnson, but that's the last one. And you can't get tickets. I don't even know if the tickets are open to the public, but it's 7,000. But that's the last one. And then my theory is that'll be it.
What? Hold on, Wayne. What is 7,000?
It holds 7,000 seats.
Oh, it holds 7,000 seats. I thought you were saying, how much for a ticket?
Well, I don't know, because
7,000.
Yeah, 7,000 seats. It's a 7,000 seater, gotcha. Whereas they've been playing stadiums that hold 80 to 100,000, and who knows how many will come out to the racetrack.
Right.
So it's a small, intimate, I think, a goodbye. Now, my theory is, because they've always said that when Charlie quits, they quit. They've always said that. And they had these gigs booked. They had these gigs booked before COVID. Yeah. And then that's when he got sick and had to step out. And I know on a way smaller level, working with Creedence, because we had to just in October of 2019, we had to cancel 3 shows in Chile because of riots. And that promoter is still hounding us to come back and make those shows up. Right. It's not going to happen. Right. But he's still handling the guys. But I know that on that level, to make up, they already canceled once. I think that they're just doing it, get it done, because originally on this tour, they were going to do Europe. And I don't check it every day, but I check their website quite often. And those Europe dates have never come up. And the Europe dates would be in the spring. And you're announcing your spring shows now. So I think that the Austin show will be their last big one to the public, with Florida show being the last one.
That's kind of a cool thing.
That's why I asked, because I was curious to know if it was possible that I might actually see the very last Stones gig ever, because the situation with Charlie and the tour, and of course their age, but we said that in '85 too. Yeah. But last I saw, it was highly possible that Austin might be the last Stones gig ever, and that would be a real.
It would have been, but they did add that Florida show at the Hard Rock. But I think that's just for all the those tickets are long gone, and I think to get them on online or whatever, from the scalpers are in the thousands of dollars. But that's not even on, I get my tickets through the VIP friends and family of the Stones from a connection I got through Charlie Sexton back in '84. And that it's not listed on that. It's not listed on that to go on, because I looked.
This is like a top secret military operation.
What I like about this is this has been a segment of how you got hooked on the Talk Louder podcast, and now we have an episode to do. But the thing is in all of this, how you got hooked, I don't want to call it name dropped, but you brought up the ARC, the ARC, which stands for the Austin Rehearsal Complex, which you were co-owner manager of,
with Don Harvey.
Which was in the mid to late 90s, which spawned a lot of. What was the dates?
It's 89 to 99.
89. Wow.
Yeah, 89 to 99. We had that last T-shirts, and we had 10 good years. We had our party 10 good years. Yeah. It was 10 good years. In fact, you were there.
Yeah, I was
Dave,
there.
You were you worked with us.
Yeah, I was a proud employee, and Dave brought the beer.
Yeah. I used to show up at, I was hanging out with a local punk rock band called the Contradicts, and they could only afford to rehearse. They could only afford the rent at like midnight or something like that. So me and the punk rockers always showed up at like midnight with an ice chest full of beer and stayed till way later than we should have.
I gotta jump in. That is so awesome. One, that Dave was like, hanging with the punk rockers at midnight at the ARC, and the fact that the ARC, the rates would go down
right
when it was slow.
Yeah, we had a musician special, which would be at the late night or in the early day when most people at work, that we had slow. Yeah. We had for $75 for the small rooms and $100 for the medium rooms. You could get 5 3-hour rehearsals for $75, 5 3-hour rehearsals. And let's face it, you can do a set. You can learn a set in 5 rehearsals.
I think that punk rock band learned 2 sets.
Man, that is cheap.
The Contradicts. I remember the Contradicts.
Yeah, it was Houston Richardson and Bobby Fuentes, and Sean was the front guy. I can't remember his last name. And they had a number of different bass players. But I'll tell you, the first time I ever set foot in the ARC, I was a student at what was then called Southwest Texas State, which is now Texas State University in San Marcos. And I was working on a journalism degree. I wanted to be a rock journalist and write for Rolling Stone and all that good stuff. Well, my first trip to the ARC was to interview Ian Moore. So cool. I walked into the ARC, and I was just, I'd heard about the place. I knew the reputation of the place. And I felt like I was walking into hallowed halls, and it was cool. I was.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was. And just all the memorabilia on the walls and knowing the history and the people that have walked in and out of that place. I mean, I just felt like I was in a really special place.
You very easily were probably breathing the same air in that exact moment of a Fabulous Thunderbird or a Sexton.
Yeah. Or a Doug Somm.
Or a Somm.
Or a Somm, son of Somm.
Any Somm. There was about 3 of them in there at one time.
Yeah, we had 3 Somms.
Yeah.
But, I want to say one of the reasons that we were able to have the ARC, and it was so professional, is because we were the first recipient of the Austin Music Industry Loan Program, where the city of Austin loaned to us. I forget how much money it was, but at that time, banks weren't loaning bands or musicians money. And so they came up with this loan program. In fact, Pariah got on it and bought a van and trailer with it. But we were the first big ones because we checked all the boxes. We were having employees. It was something that was needed. We had to get approved by the city council, but they loaned us, I think, whatever it was. I'll just make up a figure. Let's say they loaned us $100,000, and then the bank matched the $100,000. It was at 3% interest, which was real low at the time. Yeah. And we were able in 1989 build that. And we were able to do it right for soundproofing and have the right gear and hire people, etc.
You guys started a trend, is the way I say it, because rehearsal halls, places you could go work on your craft, were like gutted out, storage units and things like that. Or someone would have a room in the back of a studio at Arlen or something that if you knew the right people, you could sneak in there and rehearse your shit. But you guys started a whole thing. I think that soon after that, the Cabela's
came in. They came in. We were going about 5 or 6 years when they came in and did. I think they built 3 of them total.
They did a fantastic job too. They did a really good job and servicing the Austin community much in the same respect and in the way, because that was a hub as well. Metal Dave, I know you showed up at a bunch of punk rock rehearsals at those places too.
Yeah.
But getting back to where you said we were the first professional, when we had to sell it to the city, when I was given our pitch, one of the city, what I was saying was that I was working with Charlie Sexton, and we either just did a tour of Japan or we had just got back from a tour, or we were getting ready to go to a tour of Japan, and half our organization lived in Austin, which I thought was the important half, Charlie and I, and another half lived in LA, and we were having to rehearse in LA, which had that's how I got the idea, rehearse in LA. And I was saying that we had if we had a place here, then instead of us keeping the money in LA, the people from LA would be coming to Austin and spending the money at hotels and restaurants, etc., like that. Well, one of the city council members, George Humphreys, he goes, I've been seeing Charlie play for years. He had to rehearse before. Where was he rehearsing before? And I said, in my basement. And we started laughing, and we got it. That sort of thing. I said, in my basement, that's where we rehearsed. Yeah. Because there was no place. And another thing, as you know, Jason, as you've known me, I've always been the nice guy and the good cop. And when we first opened the Ark, I had musicians telling me that I was a jerk, that's not how you do it, that you don't charge by the hour. You know what I mean? And it's like I was a bad guy for, selling out or whatever. And it was like, that's not what it's about.
They didn't know how wrong they had it.
They didn't know. They just didn't know.
If you only need a room for a couple hours, I mean, if I'm doing it wrong, I can sell you a lockout where you have your own room all the time.
Which we did with like the Meat Puppets. They were in there, exactly. and the Butthole Surfers. Each one of them, they were in there for at least a year.
Well, and you also had the idea, I thought it was cool for, bands, if they were busy enough, they could have a locker there. So their gear would be there all the time.
All the time.
Whether they had a locked out rehearsal room, like their personal studio, like Charlie did, the Buttholes, like you said, as well as, and Jared and them had the studio there for a while, which is...
Yeah, it was cool. The studio was good. We did some work there.
Yeah.
So for people that are listening to this podcast that aren't necessarily Austin centric or are not real familiar with Austin, we should tell them that the Ark was sort of this hotbed. It was obviously, we've stated, it was a very professional environment, very well executed. And for people listening, the band, the Archangels, took their name from the Ark. And
Thank you, Charlie.
So, it's Charlie Sexton, and you've mentioned a few names. Just give us a quick little laundry list of people that were your regular clients, so that people that aren't familiar have a sense of just, the kind of talent that was always in and out of that building.
Well, and it was 89 to 99 that all this was happening.
So really, 89 is in the fall of 89 is when we did the construction, and then we opened South by Southwest of 90 to South by Southwest of 99. So that was basically when we were open. But it was sort of divided into two halves. We had these 3 professional, really nice rooms, and we had these other rooms that were a little more low end. So we catered to the name acts, which we had the record company bands, which our main one were probably the Thunderbirds, with Jimmy Vaughn, who had split from Thunderbirds, but he was in there, Charlie Sexton, Doug Somm, Joe Ely, the Butthole Surfers, the Meat Puppets, etc. But then we also had lots of bands, as you were saying, like the Contradicts, and bands that could come in and could be and could be go and get a cup of coffee or whatever and run into Doug Somm or whatever. And a good example would be there was a baby band at the time, just moved in from Idaho, Reckless Kelly, who had one of our special deals in the daytime in the little room, room 6. And if their big room 2 was open, I would put them in there, because it was, give them a professional thing, because I like the guys. And one time, Kyle Ellison, who was in the Meat Puppets, comes out of room 3, saying if I knew a sort of a psychedelic country fiddle player, I go, well, Cody Braun's next door. That studio was hooked up to both 2 and 3. And next thing you know, Cody Braun at 19 or 20 years old was on a Meat Puppet record, just like that, So it was things like that happen all the time, or not all the time, but they did happen.
That's kind of one of those magic moments, and that's why I really believe that the Ark was like a hub and a hangout, and you'd be rubbing elbows with the members of the Alarm, the Cult. I remember running into Taylor Hawkins there during South by. He was in town working with someone. This is before he was in the Foo Fighters. I remember
John Paul Jones,
all kinds of stuff. Crazy. Yeah. I mean, your list, your shopping list would be bigger than mine. But I mean, I was there with almost every band I've ever been in. Right. At least for 6 months or 6 days. And it's a missed thing, and a lot of people who moved here after it was gone, they don't even know about it, because it was really
it's our little secret, I think. It's one of the reasons why I say, and I've been living in Austin as an adult since the mid 70s, since 75, and my favorite time in Austin was the 90s, and one of the reasons was because of the Ark, but it was also it was still affordable. You had the musicians could still live in 78704, and now we had the infrastructure. We had places like the Ark. We had Arista Records was here. I think Bill Hammond brought his his publishing company here. So we had the thing. So in the 90s, it was still affordable, and it was rock. We still had Steamboat, and the Continental was going, Antone's, Liberty Lunch, etc.
And there's all of these people that you just brought up were the reason that there was quite a few young artists being signed. Push Monkey is one. They worked with Bill Ham. They were on Arista. They got discovered right here and ended up doing pretty well.
Another one I remember was Lars from Metallica coming in.
I was going to ask.
He signed Johnny Gowdy. He was
Johnny Gowdy, yes, sir.
He was doing a showcase for Flores. I mean, that happened. Yeah, we were. Yeah. It was pretty cool. It was pretty fun.
So you, as a Stones fan, did you ever have any of the Stones drop in?
No, though. Ron Wood played at the across the street at the Opera House, and Mac was living here then, and we all went to the show. But I don't think Woody came in.
When you say Mac, tell the people who you're talking about. Ian McLagan, right? That's
Ian
okay.
McLagan,
yes,
who was in the Faces,
yes.
With Ron Wood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, just so much history in that building, and I don't know the half of it. So
right. That's what I'm trying to convey here. I mean, we could talk to Wayne for 10 hours about stuff like that.
Yeah, we could talk about
just about the Ark.
Just about the Ark.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And it was good. It was a lot of fun. Now, it was fun.
Tell us a little bit. Let's talk about the Archangels real quick, because it's kind of a legendary band, and it's I'm sure that just being a fly on the wall, and you're not a fly on the wall. You were standing right there helping them. I mean, when you got Double Trouble from Stevie's band, and you got the Little Doyle Bramhall, I guess you could take the word little
Doyle
out
too.
now. Yeah, Doyle too, and of course Charlie Sexton. And we should talk about Will, his brother Will Sexton as well, because you were helping.
Well, that's how I got. That's how the Ark really came about, would be through Charlie, and that's how I. Well, I guess for me in the music business goes back to the Continental Club. Mm-hmm. And when I was a talent buyer, we opened the Continental Club. It was a dive bar. It was like I think a Speed Bar, whatever. Those 2 or 3 blocks of South Congress at that time was Skid Row. It was
literally whores and drunks.
Whores and drunks.
You could score anything you want.
And
right there.
We took it over. And in fact, I remember those day drinkers. I remember them telling me, they're sitting there, you think you own this club? We own it. You'll never get rid of us. And we got rid of them with punk rock sound checks. You bring the big boys in, or the skunks, and they were gone. But it started with that. I was booking that, and booking the Continental Club, and in the summer of 1980, every Tuesday night, W.C. Clark was playing, and I think
Austin legend.
Yep. And Speedy Sparks was on bass at that summer, and his girlfriend at the time was Kay Sexton, and she had these 2 little boys. In fact, Speedy is the one who got the boys into the music.
Wow.
And anyway, they came in. It was the summertime, and they were both born in August, so they were 9 and 11. Going on 10 and 12. So when I first booked them in there, they were 9 and 11 playing. Will played bass and Charlie played guitar with them. They do 2 or 3 songs a set. And that's how I met them. And when Charlie was playing, a lot of people, they think that I discovered Charlie, and that's the first thing. He was a pro. He'd already been playing at 11 years old. He'd been playing Armadillo, and he'd been playing, this and that.
Didn't they call him Little Charlie? Weren't they calling Stevie Little Stevie?
Little Stevie. It was Little Charlie, and the band his first band was Little Charlie and the Eager Beaver Boys.
That's exactly right. I remember that. Wow.
And I was their booking agent when the Continental Club, and we went under because of mismanagement.
Well, yeah.
It happens. And I went to work at Rock Arts, and I was Charlie's booking agent, Little Charlie and the Eager Beaver Boys, which is how I became a tour manager, because he was only, at that time, he was 14, and the other 2 guys were drinking and doing drugs. And, I remember booking him in shocking. Charlie was playing Dallas. I called the club. How did it go? And the guy goes, well, it was okay, but they were late, and the drummer was drunk or whatever, or the bass player was whatever it was. And I asked Charlie how it went. He goes, it was great. I got to drive home all night. He was this 14-year-old guy. So I started going to the gigs to make sure that it was all right and stuff, and ended up happening.
That's child slavery when you're so wasted, you make the 14-year-old drive all the way home.
And of course, Texas is the Wild West.
Oh my God, been. Yeah, they could have.
We never had any problem with Charlie and Will being in bars.
Right.
The only time that we had a problem with Charlie, and as ironic, it was the last gig that he'd be 20 years old. The next gig would be his birthday, and we were in Delaware, and I guess playing a club, and the a rival club owner dropped a dime on him that there's this teenager, an underage guy, and so everyone was there, and they said that Charlie, the compromise was Charlie he had to stay on the tour bus. He could come in and play the show, and that's the only time he can be in. And they're going on, and I go, well, what about the guitar tech, Jeff Tweedy? He's 19, and that just shut it down. That was it. They go, he's got to tune the guitars outside. I go, he can't do that. You can't tune the guitars outside.
No, you can't tune a guitar outside.
You got to acclimate it.
Unless you're already outside, right?
Yeah, unless you're already outside. But I mean, for the people listening, you have to have your guitar has to acclimate in whatever temperature it is. You can't bring it out in a hot or cold into warm or whatever.
That's right.
What about Jeff Tweedy?
Wow.
And it's the Jeff Tweedy, our Jeff Tweedy, not the Wilco Jeff Tweedy.
Of course. Oh yeah, the Austin Jeff Tweedy, the legendary secret weapon guitar tech. Yeah, the secret weapon guitar tech who's been guitar tech.
You in Watchtower.
That's right. Here's a Jeff Tweedy revamp here. Jeff Tweedy I met when he was about 14 or 15 years old, and I was working at Pantera's Pizza up on North Lamar, near Runberg, right? And I was living up there. And I meet all these kids in my neighborhood because I lived on Runberg, and Tweety lived right down the street, and all these other kids, they were all going to Lanier High School, right there. And they'd come into Pantera's, and I'd be like, "Hey man, what's up?" And they were all Watchtower fans, they get giddy and everything. And I met Tweety, and I thought he was the most interesting kid. And then when I realized he's one of these kids that, got his GED in like 8th grade or something because he could take a TV set and make a Maserati out of it. I was like, I need you to meet Billy White, guitar player for Watchtower. And he's like, okay, whatever. And so I introduced them, and boom, overnight, Tweety was a guitar tech. Overnight, he was a guitar tech. His first boss was Billy White in Watchtower. And from then on, it was like, now he's like a god.
I was working with Roger Waters, did Bruce Springsteen,
Prince, MCA from the Beasties.
Everybody.
Yeah. Keep going. Worked for Axl for a week till he got the call from Little Steven, whatever. And Charlie got him that gig, I think. The story,
Charlie got him the Little Steven gig for sure.
Tell me, I'm laughing. I just want to tell the story, even though you guys may have heard it or not. Supposedly, Little Steven and Charlie Sexton are sitting at a table in Guero's, famous Mexican food restaurant right there on South Congress in South Austin. Blah blah blah. And Little Steven's got his head in his hands. He's going, man. I just see a cartoon strip of the whole thing. Little Steven going, man, Charlie, man, I hate my guitar tech. I totally want to go into the Silvio voice, but I'll refrain. I hate my guitar tech. Well, man, I just need somebody who's mellow, who just doesn't fuck around, who's just always on time. And Charlie's like, well, I got your guy. His name's Jeff Tweedy. Here's his number right here. Rest is history.
Yeah. We were talking about Tweedy the other day because we had Jimmy Ashurst on the podcast, and Jimmy actually brought up your name, Wayne. We were talking about Tweedy went to work for Craig Ross, who was playing. Yeah, and we were talking about that because Jimmy is friends. Oh, actually, Jimmy was in a band with Craig Ross called the Broken Homes.
Broken Homes.
Yeah, I knew Wayne would know all about it.
Yeah, we know that. In fact, Craig Ross was sitting in my living room. I think it was 6 a.m. one morning or late one night, and he asked, whatever happened to Jeff Tweedy? And I said, we'll call him up. No, we can't call him. So I go, he'll be up. And we called him, and Craig hired him right there. He goes, because he was in just started Lenny Kravitz and wanted Jeff Tweedy.
Yeah. How did he know about Jeff Tweedy? How did he know about
Jeff Tweedy? Was the Broken Homes and Will and Charlie shared the same A&R guy, Michael Goldstone.
Okay.
And so we were all buddies. That's how I know Jimmy. In fact, Jimmy and Craig are the surviving members of the Broken Homes. The Broken Homes were killer way before their time.
That's what legend has. That's what legend
they
be
were,
told.
I mean,
That's what
they
the
were
word
way cool. And we all became friends because I think their album came out first before Charlie's, but we were all in LA recording, and we were just all buddies and hung out, and we're sort of birds of a feather.
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy Ashurst was our last episode or episode before last.
Yeah, he did well.
Keep up this time. Yeah, he must have done all right.
Yeah,
I think
Craig did well.
I think he showed up in an Aston Martin to pick up Metal Dave.
He did.
He picked up that Metal Dave in an Aston Martin to go to the grocery store.
We were going out to the racetrack because Jimmy's a big motorsports fan, and he happened to be in town. It was in September, October, and there was one of the car races. It wasn't the big one. It wasn't Formula One. I don't know anything about motorsports.
Well, they have NASCAR there also, so it could have been that.
It wasn't NASCAR either. It was I could tell the cars were very European looking. And Jimmy,
F1. If it wasn't F1,
it was like it was Le Mans.
That's okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And Jimmy texted me and told me he was going to be in town because he was recording some music with Hunt Sales. And I said, well, so just so happens that I've got some tickets to the racetrack, if you want to go, I know you're a motorsports guy. And he's like, oh my God, yeah. And I said, well, come pick me up. And he shows up at my house in an Aston Martin.
Yeah,
we had a great time.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was fun. So besides the ARC, were you also the talent buyer at one point for the back room?
Yeah, I was the talent buyer there from about, I would say, 80. It's either late 80, early 81 to about 86. And when I started there, because it was because of the Continental Club, and the owner Ronnie Rourke was friends with the Roddy and Roger One Night and those guys, and he hired me, and they hadn't built the second half yet. In fact, they had it was one half. The music room was in the front, and the games were in the back, and it was and he wasn't doing road shows or anything. I sort of started that and handed it off to Jim Ramsey, who's one who sort of turned it into what it was. But I did book some bands in there. I booked the Unforgiven, and I booked the True Believers in there, and started. In fact, it was how I got my the gig with Charlie. Was as I wanted to be his booking agent. Charlie Sexton, the Little Eager Beaver Boys. Now the two guys I mentioned earlier, Mudcat and Alex, who would be drinking and couldn't drive, etc. They didn't want me as the booking agent because they didn't want to lose control, which is what happened.
Yeah,
they didn't want me, and Charlie did, and we went to lunch or whatever, and I gave my pitch, and as they dropped me off at my house, Charlie said that they don't have a gig on Saturday night. If I could get them a gig on Saturday night, I could have their gig as their booking agent. And when I went in, phone machines were brand new. I just had a phone machine, and they're brand new. And I turned on the machine, and there was a band. It was John Reed, not John X Reed, but another John Reed. There's two John Reeds at the time, and I forget his band, but he said I had him booked on Saturday night, and he left a message that he had a chance to do 3 nights in Corpus Christi. Can he get out of the Saturday night gig? And I called him back, called Charlie, and had the gig, booked him in there, booked Charlie in there on Saturday night, and that's how I got Charlie. And that's sort of the beginning of a little bit of the transformation of the back room. And because it was more cover bands, and it hadn't gone the hard, it wasn't a hip place that it became, if you could call it hip.
Tell us a little bit that's between 80 and 86. I mean, there was a lot of things happening. I mean, I had just moved to town. And I don't recall the first time we actually met, Wayne, and your memory might be better than mine at this point. Well,
we met, I booked you, though I wasn't able, this would be 1985, I wasn't able to go to the show, but I did a battle of the bands, me and Margaret Mosier at Steamboat.
Yeah, and Billy Gibbons was one of the judges.
He was one of the judges, with Gretchen Barber. Yeah, and because I've always been a fan, and so I knew Watchtower. If we wanted to do a battle of the bands with metal bands, and I said, well, you got to have Watchtower. And
well, let me stop you right there. It's kind of interesting. We're talking about 1985, and when you think was it 85? January of 85.
It was 85.
I don't remember. Anyway,
it'd be 84, 85 because I know that's when I was in L.A. Doing the record with Charlie, so I wasn't there. Okay. So it could be fall to spring of 84, 85.
When you think about what was metal in Austin in 1985,
there's
not much.
Not much.
There's not much.
Not much.
It was Triple X, wasn't it? And I can't remember. It's David Spann's band.
David Spann was one band, and then
it was somebody else.
Lance Keltner.
Oh, that's right. He
had a band. Right. Yeah. He had a band. They might have been in the same band. I can't remember. But then there's like 4 bands. 2 are what I would call sort of the hip metal, which is why I brought y'all in. And the other one, they started with an M. But anyway, it was Triple X. I can't. There's four bands.
I don't know that they were metal. The other bands. I don't know that they were metal.
They probably weren't, but it was what it's what we knew.
I mean,
but they were playing the back room at the time. But that's why I brought y'all in.
Yeah. And so the standard of what was metal in 1984, 85 was probably not even what Watchtower was in. They were in a different room. It might have said metal on the sign, but they were in a different room than we were. And, it's arguable if even Watchtower is even metal anyway, because it was so esoteric.
But Watchtower had you and Billy White. And that was... that was pretty cool. Whatever it was, was cool.
That's pretty cool. I have to give honorable mention to the craziest rhythm section ever, because it wouldn't have been Watchtower without those guys. Right. So that said my piece. And that would be honorable mentions to Rick Kolaluka on drums and Doug Keyser on bass.
Right. So apologize for not mentioning that. But y'all had something going. Y'all had something going.
Yeah. So the cool thing about you being a talent buyer for these legendary and now somewhat long gone venues and things, leading you into things like just the things that you've been doing for the past, I want to say 10 years as a tour manager for CCR as well as other people.
I like that.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I like doing the tour managing. That was,
Yeah. Who all have you tour managed for?
Well, for the last 15 years until COVID was Creedence Clearwater Revisited, which was Stu Cook and Cosmo, because they had the falling out with John Fogerty, but we did all the Creedence songs. But I've also, I guess the first one was Charlie Sexton. I was his booking agent, and as I said, I went to I became his tour managing just to keep the gigs going, because people weren't going to book them because it wasn't professional. And we got a professional, and it was real quick. LA got hip to Charlie, and that was through Kathy Valentine and the Go-Go's. Cool. Yeah. The Go-Go's came to town, and we all knew Kathy. I booked Kathy in the Continental Club. I knew her from the Violators. That would be saying that Watchtower wasn't metal would be like saying Watchtower was metal would be like saying the Skunks was punk.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
It was, but that was the categories y'all were in.
Well, and that was it was the standard. It's like
that was the standard.
You had if someone wanted to put you somewhere, and they had to, it was their job to put you somewhere. That's where you ended up. Yeah, it's true.
And I want to say y'all did win the Battle of the Bands.
Yeah, thank you, Billy Gibbons.
Thank you, Billy Gibbons.
and Margaret Moser.
But anyway, Kathy Valentine was in the Violators with Jesse Sublin of the Skunks, and and then she moved to LA and had the Textones, and I'd book them in the Continental Club. And so I
want to pause you for a second. Kathy lives in, not that it doesn't matter where she lives, but she lives here, right?
She lives here. She was born and raised in Austin.
And my next question is, do you think you can help us get her on the Talk Louder podcast?
I'll ask. I'll tell her I've been shouting her out. She would be a good guest because she's got
stories for days. If you haven't read her book, read her book. Stories for days. Yeah,
I interviewed her once for Austin Monthly magazine, and she had a bunch of stories. I actually interviewed Charlie Sexton for the same magazine, but
sweet.
Since we're on the subject,
but
go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, who else have you tour managed?
Well, I just want to finish about how the Go-Go's they played the Frank Irwin Center. And Charlie and the Little Charlie Sexton Eager Beaver Boys are playing Steamboat, and she brought the Go-Go's into the Steamboat to see Charlie because we're all friends. And then they went back to LA just talking about this young, hot rockabilly guitar player, and that's when the word came out. Next thing you know, we had record companies coming down, and luckily for me, I knew Tim Neese, who worked for the Go-Go's management company, Frontline, and he managed Charlie. I became Charlie's tour manager. I've tour managed since Charlie. I tour managed Ian Moore, who I tour managed Eric Johnson when he had his big hit. Yeah. In fact, I tour managed Eric Johnson for 10 years, though there's only maybe 2 or 3 tours in those 10 years because he'd take a while to do an album and the tour, but he did play Texas quite a bit. And I I was sort of a sub for Jimmy Vaughn when he needed a tour manager. But for the main last 14 years, it was Creedence Clearwater. But another one I did was Don Walser, who I really liked. He was a good one.
Yeah,
Another Austin legend, kind of a
Austin
funny
legend.
Yeah, he was a
guy.
treasure, man. He was an Austin treasure.
And now I'm doing Wylie Hubbard, which is a good one.
Yeah, let's let our listeners who we have more of like a heavy metal rock. I mean, people watch and listen to the Talk Louder podcast just because they want to see a circus between me and Dave totally nerd out on just anything that we want to nerd out on, and this is what we're nerding out on today. For listeners, let's remind each other, the three of us in this room, how many kick-ass songs Wylie Hubbard has written.
He's still writing them.
Yeah.
Wylie Hubbard is one of the original cosmic cowboys.
Yes.
He was he had a band when I was in college. I saw his band. He had a band called Wylie Hubbard and the Cowboy Twinkies, and they were the first country band I saw do rock. They did Communication Breakdown.
Oh man.
And he became famous. He wrote the song Up Against the Wall, Redneck Mother, that Jerry Jeff Walker put on Via Terlingua with the Los Gonzo Band, which these are the Cosmic Cowboys. And that in 1973, that was the record that in the alternative country or whatever that everyone had. When I was in college, everyone had that record. It was a huge record. And not only did he record Wylie's song, but he gives him a shout out. Actually, it was Bob Livingston, the bass player, to give the shout out to Wylie Hubbard, wherever you are or whatever. But anyway, he's been writing songs and does a lot of good songs.
He's very well respected. Yes.
He's a musician's musician.
Yeah.
Like a lot of Austin musicians are. Two of his biggest fans are Ringo Starr and Joe Walsh. In fact, one of Ray's raps when he does the song is his new album, he says he's got a beetle, an eagle, and a black crow on his record. A beetle and eagle. But a lot of people are fans of his, and he's out doing it. In fact, give a shout out. Next weekend's his birthday weekend, where he's playing Green Hall on Friday, the 12th and the 13th at Paramount. It's his 75th birthday. He's still doing it, but he was one of the original Cosmic Cowboys.
Wow.
Which was
that is
before,
awesome.
as he said, before Willie came to the Armadillo and the rednecks and the hippies got together. This Cosmic Cowboy movement with B.W. Stevenson, Michael, Martin Murphy, Wylie Hubbard, they all went to high school together in Oak Cliff. They were like the country thing. And then the South Oak Cliff High was Jimmy Vaughn and Stevie and Denny Friedman and Paul Ray. So it's sort of a bluesy country thing in South Oak Cliff. So something was going on in Dallas. And of course, they all moved to Austin.
Yeah, I feel like you mix all that up and throw it in Austin. It's gonna rock.
Yeah, it's gonna rock.
It's gonna be like a little bit of country and blues mixed with some dirty rock and roll to create this weird thing. I think that the Cosmic Cowboy like moniker, that sort of like label, is really cool and extends from psychedelic through country all the way to hard rock. And dare I mention Rocky Erickson and his like roots in Austin and his influence probably on all of those, and probably did gigs with the Cobras, which had Vaughns and oh my God, I mean, did I just
the Cobras had Stevie Ray on Denny Friedman, Stevie Ray on guitar, and had Alex Napier, who's in both Charlie and Will's band. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
That all came from Oak Cliff.
Yeah, this is huge. This is really huge. I mean, if anyone were to just like open a dumb Wikipedia page about Austin music and click on some of the names that we're dropping here, a rabbit hole would open the size of the Grand Canyon, just as far as what you should probably know about history of Austin. I wonder if anyone cares sometimes. I know I do, because I love this kind of shit.
Yeah.
So. I think what we're covering here today, especially for our listeners who aren't familiar with Austin so much, is, I think Austin has an international reputation as they call it the live music capital of the world. And what we're hearing here today with Wayne is ground zero for a lot of that reputation. A lot of the people that Wayne has worked with and associated with and helped launch careers and everything, that was sort of, at least in my opinion, sort of the genesis of what gave rise to that moniker, the live music capital of the world. Because I don't know that there was a whole lot going on prior to that. And if it wasn't this sort of cohesive driving force that it became recognized as and sort of put Austin on the map. So we're really down in the roots today when you're talking about, you know, the Fabulous Thunderbirds and you going back to the Cobras and stuff like that. Highly responsible for putting Austin on the map as the live music capital of the world.
I want to jump in, but I don't want to. I guess I'm interrupting Wayne because Wayne could probably weigh in here a little bit. Is personally, I don't really like that title, the live music capital of the world. Prior to Austin using that title, because it just sounds like a T-shirt bumper sticker to me.
Yeah,
it doesn't really hold water, in my opinion, because you got New Orleans, you got Chicago. Keep going. You know what I mean? They've been doing it their entire since there was one seedling popping up. They've been the.
Yeah, we didn't come up with that.
No,
it was just I don't know.
Right,
That was definitely a Chamber of Commerce thing.
Exactly.
Big time, yeah. But I think
we had our spot. We had our spot, and
I think that David's onto something about the culture, about and how it does fit into the culture. And
I don't think we called it that ourselves. It's something that sort of came to us and was probably, as Wayne said, created by the Chamber of Commerce. But
that's exactly
it wouldn't have been justified if the talent pool wasn't here, and that's what I'm trying to get at. What I'm getting at is there was a Wayne touched on it earlier. Rent was cheap. Everybody owned a guitar. There was this music scene that was sort of germinating, and then it kind of blossomed into this thing that we're talking about today. And Wayne was in on, you know, the ground level of a lot of that stuff.
And I think another thing that what made Austin different is we had the synergy. We weren't. Our music was integrated. You know, it wasn't that segregated like the thing about the Ark. You could come in and have all different kinds of bands playing, and that's sort of what I did when my first talent buying gig was at the Continental Club. Is I had all different types of music. When we opened in September of 1979, and our grand opening was with Kinky Friedman. And then the show the two shows in a row that sort of put us on the map real quick was I had booked, because I was friends. I mentioned Jesse Sublet. Because I was a fan. I went and saw the Skunks and the Violators at Raoul's, and so I booked the Skunks in the Continental Club. And it was sort of ironic because maybe it was maybe a little bit segregated because his fans were giving him grief. Why are you going to play the Continental Club, this dive? And then my partners who were from the redneck, from the Willie Nelson thing was, what are you doing putting this punk band in?
Right.
Which, and then Jesse calls me, and this is what changed everything. Jesse calls me about a week before the gig. It was a Thursday night, that they have a chance to open for Joe Ely, who's opening for The Clash at the Armadillo.
Legend, explosion, add explosions to the.
and I said, no problem. We'll get an opening band. You open and come. And so many people gave him grief about them playing there. My guys did that when after the show at the Armadillo, when I was coming to the Continental Club, because I was hanging out, and everything, and I was coming, I was worried, is anyone even going to be there? And when I was coming from the Armadillo up Congress, and there was a line outside the Continental Club, and Joe Ely, we have to give that to Joe. Joe brought the Clash and everyone, because the Skunks, the opening band is playing. Joe brought everyone, and by the end of the night, you had Joe Ely and Jimmy Vaughn and the Clash playing with the Skunks. And after that was in the middle of October, and then I had booked for Halloween because I was friends with Freddie Kirch, who used to be the drummer for B.W. Stevenson, and Jerry Jeff Walker, who had a band called The Explosives, who were backing up Rocky Erickson, and I had them on Halloween. And that 1-2 punch, it was just like, my guy said, book whatever you want.
You just mentioned UK punk legends, The Clash, Rocky Erickson, psychedelic, almost like a gateway to heavy metal, to the Skunks, to Joe Ely, who's like singer-songwriter on the country rock alternative, just singer-songwriter vibe from Lubbock, the Lubbock thing.
Right.
And Jimmy Vaughn, all in one sentence, Wayne.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of Austin, at least
That's the beauty of Austin.
back in those days. I remember going to see Don Walser, and there would be punk rockers with mohawks. And Don Walser, for people that don't know, was a yodeling cowboy. I mean, his whole thing was
a yodeler. He was a yodeler.
He's a yodeler, and he wore this big hat, and he sat on a bar stool, and he played, and it was very roots and old school. And he had punk rockers in his crowd.
Yeah, we went on tour with Butthole Surfers.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. See, that's the beauty of it, you know?
That's the beauty of it. Yeah. That's Austin. And I think we're a little bit unique in that aspect, I think.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about Charlie Sexton, because I remember I'm from San Antonio originally, and if memory serves me correctly, so is he.
Yeah, him and Will were born there.
Yeah, and he didn't come on my radar until MTV, Beat So Lonely.
Right, and he's all of it. When that came out, he was 16 when he recorded that, and 17 when it came out. So he's still a teenager when that came out.
Are you working with him at that point?
Yeah, I was working with him. That's okay. I was working with him then.
So when I remember the video on MTV, I thought he looked really cool. I was like, who is this guy? He's got a cool look and a cool vibe going. And they were sort of grooming him as sort of a heartthrob, sort of kind of teen idol type thing. Yeah. Obviously he's done very well for himself. But in your opinion, why did the grooming not turn him into, why didn't he follow that path, or why didn't he become known as that instead of what he's become known as today, which is, world-class guitar player who plays with the Stones and Dylan and David Bowie?
Because that's what he is. He's I guess an example, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but Duran Duran called Charlie when their guitar player had quit, and they called Charlie, wanting him to be in the band, and he turned huge. He turned him down. I was ready to go. I was like, let's go be with Duran Duran. They got us tickets to the show in Austin. It was all young girls, I was like, but Charlie wanted to do. He didn't want to do that. He had his own career he wanted to do, and and he just went a different direction.
Yeah, I wanted to hear it from you, because I think a lot of people, and this happens a lot of times, people, their first impression is what they either hear on the radio or especially back in those days, see on MTV, and that sort of almost pigeonholes that person. And a lot of times what people don't understand is it's a record company or somebody that's grooming this person to fit this image to sell records. And it may not be what the person truly wants to do.
Well, on Charlie, that was what he truly wanted to do, but he was 16 and 17. Yeah. By the time he was 18, like when he was in the the Archangels, when he was in the Archangels, he was 21 years old. Now he's an old pro. He's been doing it for 10 years. So the record company would have loved to have him.
I'm sorry, let me interrupt you. He's an old pro at the age of 21.
At the age of 21. Age of 21. And Doyle was too. Doyle played with the T-Birds. So you had these guys that were 21 years old playing with the rhythm section, Tommy and Whipper. But that was when he didn't want to, he didn't want to keep going on that. Now the record company might have liked him to keep doing that, but he grew up. He wasn't. He grew up.
Right.
Do you feel like
good point?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you feel like the Archangels was just something until the next thing that he wanted to do? I mean, he did grow up, and he's in the Archangels.
Yeah.
I guess my question, let me refine it. I feel like he was extremely in a great place as a performer and a songwriter when he's in the Archangels. Do you feel like that's his happy? Do you think he's happy writing that kind of a rock and roll song?
And I think he's gone on from that. Now the Archangels broke up because of Doyle's drug problem, which he's got clean and sober and everything, and they went different ways. But now he's an adult and doing things. But getting back to when he was a teenager, when he was 15 years old, he was recording with Ron Wood, the Rolling Stones, and I was with him when he met Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan came to one of those recording sessions, and Charlie was 15 years old. When he was 15 years old, he recorded on Don Henley's "Building the Perfect Beast" album. He was on Man with a Mission. He's on one of those songs. He was 15 years old and recording, so he had the chops. You know,
right.
He had it. He could rap. Where he learned all this, I don't know.
Well, I think that he's just one of the, I think his brother Will is that talented too.
Will's that talented. I call it the boy named Sue theory, where they were given this talent because they had a little bit of a hard upbringing. You know, their parents are beautiful people, but they were young and had the children young, and I think they were given this gift and did it. But
if we play a game called Is It True, and we don't have to go into any details or living arrangements or anything like that, but let's play the game. Now's the time on the Talk Louder podcast for Is It True? Hi, Wayne. I'm Jason. I'm your host of Is It True? Is it true that you may have had a hand in the raising of the Sexton boys?
Well, I go yes and no. I did the best I could.
You're trying to keep the drug and drink away from them as best as you can.
Yeah. Now Charlie was he was pretty focused. Now Will was wild. He was just a wild child. But they were both very talented. And now Charlie, when I started working with him at the age of 14, he already had his own apartment and such. But Will did live with me, and in fact, that's when I sort of cleaned up my act, when I was working with these young boys that I knew that I shouldn't be, doing the things that I was doing around them. But it was part of the gig, I guess.
Well, especially if you're going to, this is your career too, Wayne.
Right.
This is your career. This is their life. This is your career. That is your life.
I can remember on Will's 16th birthday. We're flying to LA. You know, he's got a record deal too. We're flying to LA, and we're sitting first class, and it's his birthday. And the flight attendant, they're called stewardesses in those days, but the flight attendant, she was just like, just completely taken by Will, and she's bringing him drinks. You see, we're already only 16. Like, lady, help me out.
Hey, you have to go. I'll take the drink. I'm old enough to drink that. He's not. Yeah, I'll take that.
Of course, Will would drink it, because he was a 16-year-old rocker.
Well, because he's a rock and roll kid.
He's a rock and roll, And Will, we got to talk about Will, because he could write the songs, and Will was good. And I think, and Will is where, I swear, going back to Jeff Tweedy, how I met Jeff Tweedy is when Will, he had his record deal, and his guitar player, Terry Lacaze, who's from France, we were coming back on a tour from Canada, and I didn't have any clue about those days. And the tour manager was Bobby McNeely, if you remember Bobby McNeely. Oh, yeah,
of course. Yeah, back room, Bobby
McNeely. Anyway, Terry gets pulled out and deported back to France because he didn't have the proper paperwork.
Yeah,
and we were getting ready to do the album, and Joe Ely was producing the album, so we were lucky enough to have David Grissom on the album. So we had David Grissom on the album, but we still needed a guitar player. And so what guitar player did we get? Who was the perfect match?
Billy White.
So we got Billy White. And Billy White, now we're doing a show, Billy White's first show, we're playing Liberty Lunch. And at Liberty Lunch, the dressing room was behind the stage. You had to go on the stage to get in the dressing room, and that's where the beer was. And all these, because Will's, 16 years old, so all these teenagers are going back and drinking beer, and I about had enough of these teenagers on my stage. The next long-haired teenager I saw on the stage, I threw him off, and Will comes up to me and goes, "You just threw Billy White's guitar tech off the stage." And it was Jeff Tweedy. So I get him back on, and so I met Jeff Tweedy. Now,
your first meeting of Jeff Tweedy, you had him by the hair, chucking him out the back door.
Get him out of here! And he wasn't even drinking the beer.
No, of course not. But he's never drank. So
he's never drank.
Yeah.
But that's how I met Jeff Tweedy. But getting to Billy White and Will. So we had the record done. Now our A&R guy who signed Charlie.
This is Will and the Kill, right?
Will and the Kill.
Name of the band, Will and the Kill.
So we had the record that Joe Ely produced, and who came under budget. He came under budget. The record company didn't want him because he was on MCA, and they just, unbeknownst to us, when we hired, I thought it was a brilliant idea having Joe Ely produce Will. The record company, they was pushing back, and the reason they were pushing back because they were getting ready to drop Joe.
Conflict of interest.
It's conflict, and they dropped Joe. So anyway, Joe made a record. We came under budget. It was all good. And now, so we have a guitar player. We have Billy White and the A&R guy, Michael Goldstone, who signed, we talked about the Broken Homes. He signed Charlie and Will. He went on to sign Pearl Jam and Rage Against the Machine. This guy knows his stuff. He's cool. He goes, we got to get Billy White on this record. And so we go into LA and do one song that's called No Sleep. And it became the first song on the record. And he brought in another producer because Joe was busy to do it. And you know who that producer was?
No.
Mike Wagner of Dokken.
Oh, right. Except Dokken, he's worked with Metallica.
A big guy. And that's how the door sort of opened for Billy White into Dokken. I know there's another story.
There's a whole other story.
Dokken hearing the cassette. I think that's sort of a, it could have happened, but I know
what's funny. This 6 degrees of separation here is that on the Dokken record that Billy White played on, the drummer is Mickey D, who's now in the Scorpions. Mickey D was in King Diamond, who sang for Merciful Fate, and Watchtower opened for King Diamond. This would have been 86 at the Ritz. And so Billy White and Mickey D are in the same building together. I don't even know if they met. And so 86, so 7, 8, 9, 3 years later, Billy White is sleeping on me and Scott Delhoover's couch, Dangerous Toys guys. We're in LA recording, and Billy calls me and goes, can I surf your sofa? I'm on a secret mission in Los Angeles. He was auditioning for Dokken, but he wouldn't tell me and Scott who he was auditioning for, and that would have been 88.
Yeah, that would be 88. That would be right.
Only two years after being in King Diamond Watchtower playing the Ritz in Austin, Texas. 2 years later, Billy White's playing guitar with.
But Mike Wagner saw him. He produced it. He knew that was a guy. When George Lynch left.
So Wagner played the cassette for Don Dokken.
Yeah, well, the story that I remember was out that Don Dokken had put a cassette in to record over it, and heard the Billy White had given a cassette and heard it, whatever. But I don't think that's true. I think Wagner was there. He knew Billy White. He was playing. Yeah. He played on the record. So whatever it was, Billy White did get into Dokken.
Well, Billy White was in the air somehow.
Yeah, he was in the air.
Yeah, but, somehow.
But that was a good one, Billy White and Will and the Kill.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I want to talk a little bit about the Sims Foundation, because Wayne, aren't you one of the architects of the Sims Foundation?
I'm a founder. I'm a founder with Don Harvey, Sims's father, Don Ellison, Alejandro Escovedo, and then an attorney named Walter Taylor. And we just did a which we called the Founders Challenge. Don Ellison called us up, and I guess he knew he was getting ready to pass, and said he had some money. We come up with this idea that we did, and we were able to use the money to hire a publicist, because with Sims, the money goes to help the musicians and their families, and we really couldn't have a publicist to do what we wanted to do. And Don okayed that, and then he passed on. But we were able to get in Billboard and on NPR and this and that. But yes, we founded the Sims Foundation in 1995. Yeah, it's still going strong.
And again, for our listeners who aren't familiar, the Sims Foundation is a very well-known organization here in Austin and across Texas. It's named after Sims Ellison.
Sims Ellison.
He was
it's not an acronym. It's not an acronym.
That's his first name. Yeah, Sims Ellison. He was the bass player in a band called Pariah. They were signed to Geffen Records. There was some high hopes for this band. And Sims, unfortunately, sadly, took his own life. And this foundation that Wayne was a part of founding, along with the other people that he mentioned, the idea was to put together a foundation that would help struggling musicians that were dealing with challenges in their lives and difficulties and that sort of thing. And the reason I want to bring this up is because, as you just alluded to, it's been around for how many years now?
Well, 26 years. We say 25 because we lost one a year for COVID. We never really had our big 25th blowout, but 26 years. 1995 is when Sims passed.
So we're talking 25, 26 years. This organization has been around helping musicians deal with, suicide and depression and dependencies and a lot of challenges. Yeah. And so I think it's remarkable, and I wanted to bring this up. I think it's incredible that you put this together, not you single-handedly, but you and a bunch of
Alejandro.
other. Yeah, and it's been around for 25 years. It's done a lot of great work for a lot of people who really need it, and God knows where they'd be without it, Can you give me a sense of how many people this organization has helped, or how much? Give us some sort of brief summary about.
I'll have to say 1,000, maybe. I don't know, but we have helped quite a few. It's definitely a need for it, and we're thanks to this new challenge room, we're hoping to expand, and I think we'll be opening a Sims in Raleigh, North Carolina. They got a little scene there, and we of course want to open one in Nashville and Seattle. So we're starting. It's taken a long time, but we're going to start expanding and helping musicians all over the country.
So why
and their families?
Yeah.
And the crew. That was me. I brought the crew in, of course.
Yeah. What about the crew, man?
What about the crew? Yeah,
help the crew.
They got problems.
They get frustrated too.
Yeah. So to what do you attribute the longevity of this organization? Because it's not unusual for something like this to pop up immediately after the fact, and then it kind of runs out of steam after a couple of years. But this thing has been going for 25 years, which is incredible. So to what do you attribute that success?
I'm going to say that's the Austin musicians. They help. We've helped the Austin musicians. I don't know how many musicians came up and said that I or Sims saved their life, and they're willing to give back, and then they give back, and it's just kept going. And after 10 years of Sims begat HAM, which is an acronym, which is Health Alliance for Austin Musicians, which is healthcare. Mm-hmm. I don't know why America couldn't do what we did, but that happens because musicians needed healthcare, and it's the musicians, and we're always doing fundraisers and helping, but it's the musicians who have kept it going.
Yeah.
They're very grateful, and because it can be tough. It's there's a lot of depression.
Yes.
It's a pyramid. We could go on. It can give the whole rap, but but perseverance. We've always had good people helping, good volunteers. I think it's our community. Our community, we're a tight community, and helping. We've helped a lot of people, and there's it's hard to keep going without help.
Yeah. Well, I think it's incredible. I think it's a very important service that's provided to a segment of the population that needs it and might not otherwise have the means to help themselves. So I just wanted to give you a minute in the spotlight to talk about the Sims Foundation, because I think that's as much a part of your legacy as the ARC and all the other accolades we've talked about today.
Well, thank you. I think it is. If I was to mention one thing, I think it would be Sims. And a lot of people, which I'm glad we're talking about Sims, because I've gone and given this talks where people don't realize that Sims was a person, because it's been 26 years. Mm-hmm. Because most of these organizations are acronyms and names, but Sims was a person. He was a beautiful person. He was he was in the band Pariah, and Pariah was a band that was in the a sibling band of the Dangerous Toys. At the same time as Jason's band, Dangerous Toys, and I was a co-manager of Pariah with Kevin Womack, and they, it was that era, and they had they were signed to Geffen, and things looked good for them, and their headquarters, it goes back to the ARC. Their headquarters was the ARC, which was where they hung out and everything. And then when he did pass, it didn't happen for Pariah. And the reason was, it wasn't Pariah. It was this is an example of the record company, or on this one was the producer. And I'm going to call him out. That would be Tom Zutaut, who had huge success with Guns N' Roses and some other bands. But Pariah saw the shift that was going on in the music, and Tom Zutaut did not see that shift. And I remember him telling them that you're a metal band, you'll always be a metal band. And they weren't. They were changing, and it did change, and it changed with Nirvana and Pearl Jam and that. And Pariah was going in that direction. And so all of a sudden, after 20 years of metal selling records and being top, there was a break, and that was when their record came out. It was just a bad timing. But I really thought that Tom Zutaut, when they were making that record, that they were going in that direction. And, he didn't see it. He didn't see it.
Yeah, I think that the songs that ended up on the Pariah record, "To Mock a Killingbird," is like leftovers from them wearing, tight pants and singing real high. And I think the material they were writing, certainly they were trying to sell it to Tom, and he wasn't having any of it because he's, like you said, he's, you're a metal band, you're always going to be a metal band.
That's exactly.
And so that's what he made. He made them fit what he wanted them to be at the time, because he wanted him, he wanted them to be a Guns N' Roses thing, because that was the feather in Tom's hat, I think. And it's too bad that he didn't see it, because Tom could have saved the day by working with the band to do this shift in the songs on the record that Pariah did record that never really came out.
And they did, because like in every band, the do-it-yourself, they did their own records, and if you put their own records together, they sold as many records as the major label record that cost $100,000 to make or whatever.
That's right.
So we could have just kept doing our own. But anyway, it was a good run.
Yeah, but anyway, the Sims being a real person, and we all called him a friend, and he was a roommate of mine, just like 2 weeks prior to his passing. He lived with me and Jeff Tweedy.
He was a good one. We love
but
Sims.
It's just too bad, and his closest friends, I don't even think saw that coming.
Yeah.
So
and one of the reasons we have Sims is because an example is his brother Kyle. He, after Pariah, Kyle somehow ended up in the Butthole Surfers. And so Kyle
and the Meat Puppets
from the Butthole Surfers,
these legendary bands.
Yeah,
right.
Kyle. There's a reason.
Yeah,
but the point being, Kyle had just lost his brother, his bandmate, his best friend, and he's talking to a family counselor or psychiatrist or whatever, and this guy is talking to him. Not really. He kept going on. You're in a band called the Butthole Surfers. He's not. He wasn't helping. With Sims, the counselors, there are musicians. They know about it. They're not going to be shocked that you're tatted
they're
up.
They're fans of the Butthole Surfers.
They're fans of the Butthole Surfers. they got the records.
Exactly.
This guy
Instead of going, you're doing this all wrong. You need to just dress different and get yourself in a calming situation. No, it's like that person with the degree doesn't really know what they're trying to do. And I think
they meant well, and the family meant well.
Sure.
But that's one of the reasons why we did the Sims, is so to help the musicians with people who knew, because they don't always
rock and roll people helping rock and roll people. Yeah. I think that it's a great
back to you, Dave. Back to your question on how it lasted so long, is because so many people are willing. The counselors that are helping that, they're doing that for a cut rate. They're giving their time. There's a lot of pro bono work going on just to help to keep this scene going on. And one of this. Because without the musicians and the artists, we are no live music capital of the world. We're not this bohemian utopia that Austin is.
Yeah, good point. And I think that goes back to the community at large in Austin, the arts community. And since we're talking specifically about music, you do find that people that are music fans in Austin know more than your average bear, so to speak, about music,
Right.
because they've either been in bands, they have friends in bands. In Austin, you're only 3 steps away from some form of the music business. And so there's a lot of integration, I think, where people are a little more educated about, some of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on. And that's why you get, that quality or that type of person, a medical professional, a mental health professional, or whatever, who is a music fan and understands music beyond what is being force fed to them on the radio.
An example would be like my dentist contributes to Sims and Ham. You go in his office, he's got the stickers and, et cetera, so the community is helping support it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I applaud you. I think it's a great thing, and I'm
Thank you.
Thrilled that it's been going on for 25 years and is still going strong.
And we're no, it's tough. It's hard because especially now in COVID, when musicians need it the most and people don't have the money to contribute. So it's hard that we're still doing it. We're always struggling, which is why we did our Founders Challenge, but we're going to expand and we're going to keep going, and hopefully it'll still be here in 26 more years.
Yeah, that Founders Challenge is like put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, we did. We raised. Don Elson put some money up. We matched it and we raised it. And I'm pretty proud of it. What Alejandro, Don Harvey, and I did.
Awesome.
And in fact, Alejandro put his heart and soul out. Because he was the one who was being interviewed. You're not interview me or Don. Alejandro's the one that's in Billboard or on et cetera.
Yeah. Well, Alejandro is wearing an invisible crown in my book.
Yeah, he's a real deal.
He is a real deal, and he's rock and roll and punk rock and heavy metal all rolled into one just cool, mellow dude. And if you don't know who Alejandro Escovedo is and you know who Sheila E. is, y'all need to do some Wikipedia work.
That's right. You gotta Google it.
Yeah.
Google
While you're at it, look up Javier and Mario.
Javier.
Hello. Yeah.
The True Believers, one of my favorite bands of all time.
Yeah.
The True Believers. And that first Rank and File album, which was the first country punk record, was that with Alejandro on it, the Chipman Brothers. The Kingdom.
Man, we could talk about the legend of Austin, Texas, and your knowledge of the whole thing. Hey, do you before we kind of tie up loose ends here, do you have any Stevie Ray Vaughan stories?
Yeah, I guess I do.
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you do.
We got to limit you to 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I'm just kidding. Give us a good one.
Stevie, when we had the Continental Club, he was beyond playing. I mean, he could play bigger places. He hadn't really, he wasn't national yet, but he was playing. The Continental Club was a 200-seater, and he was playing 500-seaters. But he would play once a month for us, and he'd play the full moon.
What year?
This would be 82, 82 and 83. So for 2 good solid years. And that's when he had the trio. That was the Double Trouble with Tommy and Whipper. And they would play on the full moon. And it was big for us because if it's the full moon at the beginning of the month, that money would pay our rent. If it's the middle of the month, it would pay the TABC bill, those are the 2 big bills. Mm-hmm. So, we love Stevie, and it just, he'd just pack them in. And there'd be so many people in there that we would, before video monitors, the VCRs just came out, and the VCRs, when they came out, they came with a video camera. They came with a video camera. So Joe Bryson, who had Sanctum Records, he had one, and we'd bring our TVs and put them around the club or outside. And he would film it. So people stand in line to get in to see Stevie playing. But
that's cool.
The story, if you've been in the Continental Club, as I said, it's a 200-seater. And so
I didn't even know it would hold that many.
I didn't think so either.
It's a sardine can. It's a shoebox.
Here's story number 1. So one night I'm paying his tour manager, Cutter Brandenburg, and Stevie got the door, and we were charging $5 on a Monday night, which $5 is a lot. And when we were counting the money, we're paying him. I paid Cutter $2,500, which meant 500 people came through there. Well, where did they go? Now, one of the things is Stevie played all night. He would do 2 sets. He would start at 10 and play at 11:30, and then go to 12 and play to 2. So there's a big changeover. But we're all just, besides a $2,500 payday, which was pretty good on a Monday night in 1982, it was 500 people. You know,
in a 200. Wait, how did they? Where's the fire marshal in this?
Yeah, they were. That wasn't around back then.
That didn't happen back then.
That didn't happen. And the drinking age was 18 at the time, also.
Well,
18 or 19.
The fact that you were all kind of like poor man's via satellite with the gigantor VHS cameras and the TVs around in 1982, a $5 cover. That's
we were ahead of that. We were ahead of the game. And a lot of that was Joe Ely was a lot of that, because he was the very first of you had that album High Res. He was the first one that was doing the computers and stuff. But that was Joe Bryce of Inner Sanctum. But that would be a Stevie story.
Inner Sanctum Records, the record store down near the drag.
It was the predecessor of Waterloo. That was the one that was on the drag.
Right. Well, it's an infamous store. I bought many records from Inner Sanctum.
Yeah, Inner Sanctum. But Joe, he was the video guy, Joe Bryce. So give him a shout out. He's the one who brought the video in. And
well,
then,
he brought you into the next century with that.
Yeah, he brought us into the next century.
That's right around pre-MTV kind of stuff going on. Yeah. So what about one more story? And I would like to try to tie it into David Bowie. SRV and David Bowie. Were you in the room when it was kind of discovery moment? Was David Bowie walking to the club kind of a thing?
No, David,
give us a scenario. How does that story go?
Well, I'm gonna have to. David Bowie did not come in. I don't remember him coming in the kind of club, but he got hip to it. Stevie was so good that people heard about him. You know, he auditioned for Jagger, had him play a private party.
Wow.
Jackson Browne gave him studio time. They did that album, and Bowie. I can't really remember the story on how Bowie
probably word of mouth. David, tell us the story. Tell us the story, David. I
know the story. So apparently Bowie saw Stevie Ray play at the Montreux Jazz Festival in is that Switzerland or
Switzerland?
Switzerland. And so they didn't know each other, but they were both performing at this festival. And if memory serves me, Bowie saw him play at that festival, and that's what put him on his radar.
Right.
And then
that makes sense.
How things transpired after that, I don't know, but that's how Bowie became aware of Stevie.
Let me throw some gold stars towards Metal Dave here. Now, Dave, you have interviewed David Bowie, and do you recall your questioning be like the SRV connection? And
it's funny. So. It's funny that you bring this up, because I was going to mention this earlier. I was doing a phone interview with David Bowie. This would have been about 96, 97. He was coming to play at the South Park Meadows with 9 Inch Nails. And so, it's a phone interview. So he finds out that I'm based in Austin, and he immediately goes, "Oh, Austin, so many great guitar players in Austin." And he rattled them all off: Charlie Sexton, Ian Moore, Eric Johnson. He totally knew all the hotshot, guitar slingers in Austin. And I was impressed with that. I was like, wow, this guy is like big British rock royalty, and he knows all the guys that are still playing, the Continental Club and Antones and stuff like that. He was really well informed about the caliber of guitar players that we have here in Austin.
And, Charlie Sexton played with David Bowie.
Yeah, and then Charlie went on to play with him. Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
David is a good one.
Yeah. Man.
And the first, back circle, the very first demo that Charlie recorded when the record companies first came in, the producer was Mick Ronson from the Spiders from Mars at Riverside. I couldn't believe it. And I'm driving him. I'm picking up at the airport, and I'm driving him. I have a Toyota Corolla. I'm picking him up in an old Toyota Corolla. Picking up Mick Ronson, Spiders from Mars, and that was. I wish he had been the producer personally. I mean, that was the stuff that I liked the best. But anyway. A little bit of to be able to have one of the Spiders from Mars as your producer on just like your earliest shit is otherworldly anyway. Whether you're from Mars, a spider or not, that's just wacky. And I have to say, he was way cool. Oh, I bet. Now here's the deal. You look at old pictures of Mick Ronson, and he's wearing Randy Rhoads' outfit.
Yeah,
right.
He looks like Randy Rhoads copied him.
Copied him.
For all you headbangers out there who want to put on Diary of a Madman and you see pictures of Randy Rhoads, look up Mick Ronson.
Yeah.
We'll wait. Yeah. Go ahead. We'll wait. Go ahead.
Randy admits it too. I mean, Randy made no bones about it.
He wouldn't have had he wouldn't have had a leg to stand on. Just someone go, hey, who's this Mick Ronson trying to rip off Randy Rhoads? No, buddy, you got it wrong.
Yeah,
you got it backwards.
Mick Ronson really didn't get his due, in my opinion.
Oh no.
Yeah.
He was a good one. He was a good
Absolutely.
one.
Awesome. Well, listen, Wayne, I'm going to be, I hate to do this because we could go on for hours, but man, it has been extremely spectacular to just pick your brain about a lot of awesome things with your highlighting points in your career, as well as getting some good stories that, are just not revealed enough, that are not, in somebody's scrapbook somewhere, or maybe not even have been covered yet in the history of Austin music. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here with us today, buddy.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Wayne, it was great meeting you. As you said at the top of the show, we've probably crossed paths, but I've never had the opportunity to have a conversation with you, and today was awesome. I really enjoyed picking your brain. And
I'm sure once this COVID thing is finally done, we'll be out more.
Yeah.
Nice.
And thank you for sharing all your stories. Thank you again for your work with the Sims Foundation.
Well, I called him. What did I call him earlier, David? I called this guy.
Jason sent me a text and said he's the coolest guy in Austin. I'm not kidding.
Stand by that.
Well, you're too kind. I'm going to have to say that's Charlie Sexton, but
he may disagree with me that I think you're the coolest guy in Austin.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time today. And that's it for another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host, Jason McMaster. Our very special guest today, Mr. Wayne Nagel, a wealth of information. We really appreciate you spending time with us. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Talk Louder podcast.